What's good, everybody? We are coming at you with the most recent statistics for not only the month of January 2026, but actually, we're going to do a little bit of a review on the entire year of what happened in Surrey real estate for the entire year of 2025. It was obviously a topsy-turvy year, but one of the benefits of getting out of the year and into the next is that we can see the numbers from start to finish and really get an idea of what was going on. So, without further ado, let's jump right into it. I'm going to be sharing some things with you in this video that I don't normally share, and I think you're going to be fairly interested in terms of what's going on or what's happened and where things might be headed. So let's talk about it right now. Now, for those of you that are new to the channel, if you don't follow these monthly videos that we release or any of the information we release on a regular basis regarding South Surrey, White Rock, and the Surrey areas, you're definitely going to want to consider subscribing because it's information like this that we give you each and every month to help set you up for success in your real estate endeavors. When we're talking about what's happened in the market in this video, we're going to be talking about something called the benchmark price, and that comes from something called the home price index. What is the home price index, you might be asking? Well, the home price index is the very best tool we have. It's not the median price that can be skewed. It's not the average price of what happened with homes that can be skewed. This is a very fancy algorithm designed by the good people at University of British Columbia for us that is used throughout Canada. It is the same source of numbers that the media quotes, that the government uses for their planning, and is our very, very best tool. So we're looking at what we consider the typical home, and this algorithm will, account for extra bedrooms and bathrooms and square footage and lot size and location and all that sort of stuff. It takes everything into account. So we're using the benchmark price in this case. And I want you to think of it a little bit like inflation. So we're really just getting an idea of like a particular home in a particular neighborhood. Is it going up or down and trending in what direction? So that's what we're doing in this case. Now, as we get started here, I wanted to show you this because this is pretty stark. This graph on your screen here, this goes all the way back to 1990. And if you go to the very far right of the graph, you can see the blue line on the very right of the graph. It's the highest it's been since this graph is goes back to 1990. So the crazy thing about that is that's the amount of listings that were on the market for the year of 2025. You can see we far exceeded every other year since 1990. And in fact, it goes further back than that. I'm going to show you that in a moment. Now, if you go down to just below that, beside that graph, rather, the little red line, you can see we had one of the lowest years for sales that we've also had since the 1990s. You'd have to go back probably into the 2000s, the year 2000 maybe, to get sales quite as low. And think of the inventory that's been added to the market. Think of the amount of people that live in Surrey now compared to 25 years ago. So if you can imagine what kind of market condition that really creates when you have listings up here and you've got sales down here, and there's this huge gap and chasm between where those are, that's going to have a lot of pressure on the market, and specifically a lot of pressure on pricing in the market. So to put that into a little more context, this is the most recent news or stats release package from the Fraser Valley Real Estate Board. The Fraser Valley Real Estate Board is basically North Delta all the way over to Abbotsford and everything south down to the border. So just look at the headline here. Look at what it says. 2025 Fraser Valley housing market slowest in over 2 decades, despite falling prices and decade high inventory. So already that's pretty startling. I did underline a few things on here that I really wanted to bring your attention to as well, though, and I'll read the first sentence out to you. Decade high inventory and softer prices failed to spark buyer demand in the Fraser Valley in 2025. Despite favorable conditions and increased negotiating power, many buyers stayed on the sidelines, making it one of the slowest years for sales in decades. I underlined another thing on here that's going to be pretty startling. On the supply side, buyers had more choice than any point in the past 4 decades, 40 years, more choice than they've had in the last 40 years. Absolutely unbelievable. So that's had a massive impact on what's been going on, and we're going to show you that very shortly here. This image you're seeing on your screen is a graph. The blue line at the above is all the property types, condos, townhomes, detached homes from the Greater Vancouver Real Estate Board and what happened with them in terms of prices. And that's kind of Whistler all the way down to Vancouver, Richmond, Burnaby, Tri-City areas, Maple Ridge is in there, all that sort of stuff. So that's generally what happened with prices. And this is going back to 2024. And the red line below is the same thing for the Fraser Valley Real Estate Board with the areas that I described earlier. So let's get into what actually happened with the specific product types. And this is for the city of Surrey as a whole. So it's not North Surrey, it's not Central Surrey, it's not Newton, it's not South Surrey. This is the entire city of Surrey we're looking at. So to start, condominiums. Condominiums finished the year in a balanced market condition. You can see that red line across the screen there, and that represents a balanced market. I mean, there really shouldn't be any favor to any one particular party, but you also will note that since the beginning of 2025, that market was well into what we call a buyer's territory. It was below that 15% mark where that red line begins. And that is a really great condition for somebody that is looking to buy a home and not so great for somebody looking to sell. So that's going to have a big impact on prices because there's just so much. What this means is there's so much inventory out there. There's so much for these buyers to choose from. And only did it get back into a balanced market territory the very last month of the year, which is super interesting. Now, I'm going to glaze over the price graphs very quickly because for whatever reason, I want to get this video out to you as soon as possible. But for whatever reason, our system is not showing the month of November to December. So it's not actually showing us on this graph what happened in December, but I will show you numerically what happened in December in a moment. But you can just really see since 2025 what has happened to the price of condominiums in the city of Surrey. It's absolutely startling. So when we go into condos month over month, they're down nearly about $4,000, and year over year, they're down about $41,000. And that's the case for the entire year. That's just shows us how difficult the market was for condominiums in the city of Surrey for the entire year. Certain areas performed differently, like the Wally neighborhood, as an example, was incredibly difficult. Surrey, the downtown Surrey, the city of the future type area, that area was incredibly difficult to sell condos. And I remember at one point looking in North Surrey, and there was about 825 or 50 condominiums available. And this is Guildford and Wally and everything in North Surrey there. And 750 of them were in Central City. You imagine the amount of competition that people were in trying to sell a condominium last year. You've got a 800 square foot, 2-bedroom condo that was built 4 years ago. Well, you and 30 other people on the market right now within 3 blocks of each other. It's just absolutely crazy. So this obviously was not awesome for sellers, awesome for home buyers. So based on what the data tells us for supply and demand anyways, is there really should be no advantage to either party in this type of market condition coming out of December. Now, December is very commonly what happens is the new listings coming to the market, people decide not to put their homes on the market because they're figuring maybe they'll do it in the spring, maybe they'll do it in January. Right now, in this time of this video is being filmed, and actually, I'll mention it right now. We've got a really great video being released on our YouTube channel about the pros and cons of waiting to sell or waiting to buy in the spring, and I think that's going to really surprise you with data. So there's some really good data in that. So you're going to want to make sure you check out that video. That said, though, we were in a market where the advantage was heavily stacked in favor of the buyer for the majority of the year. So even saying that there's no advantage to anybody right now almost feels a little wrong because 1 month does not make the market. One positive month does not make the market. We're looking for trends. So anyways, take that for what it is. But we always kind of go through this section and saying, if you're living in a condominium, you want to consider if you don't have something to live in currently and you're renting, well, you're paying rent on something. So even when we go back and we say that the market is down $40,000, there's another argument to be said there that how much did you spend on rent last year? And none of that money went towards equity of a property that you actually own. And instead of, versus somebody who's starting to buy today versus somebody who bought a property 1 year ago, even if the property has changed by about $40,000, well, number one, they haven't lost that because they're not selling. But number two, they've been putting equity into their bank each and every mortgage payment. So they're putting more equity towards their property. And third is instead of having a 25-year mortgage, they're 1 year closer to actually paying that mortgage off. They've only got a 24-year mortgage ideally. So something to certainly consider. We've talked a lot about new construction in the area being completely stalled. That's going to be a big story of 2026. So around this time, more so towards the holidays at the end of this year. We're going to be talking a lot about that because that's going to be a really big deal. So keep an eye on that. Be very, very careful about timing the market. When you see things like this, again, the market has gotten better. It's improved for home sellers. It's gotten a little worse for home buyers. 1 month does not make a market. However, if that trend continues, you do need to pay attention to that. And the interesting thing I think about all of this is affordability is really here. We are back to 2021 levels in terms of pricing, which is wild to think about. Now, it's late 2021. In 2021, there was a big run up that year. But I want you to think that a lot of the equity growth that happened from late 2021 for all property types in Surrey, we've given a lot of that back since then. So it's really quite startling. In fact, let me show you this here. This is detached homes. This is the price of detached homes. I'm giving away a little bit of the video here, but detached homes in the area, like it's just wild. Townhomes in the city of Surrey, just wild what the prices have done. And apartments. So let's zoom out here a little bit and let's look at like kind of pre-COVID times. Well, look at when apartments were last that price. It was like November 2021. So we've given away a lot of that equity that we gained. So anyways, I'll leave it at that. Let's get into townhomes. So townhomes were in a balanced market for the month of November, and they finished in a balanced market for the month of December. That said, prices still struggled. So we've seen a big change in prices for townhomes over the course of 2025 as well. But again, recall that this graph is not showing the month of December. And notice that we've been in a balanced market for 2 months. Look at what happened with prices month over month for townhomes. So those who waited to buy a townhome and didn't act in December when they could have, those who acted in November, they've actually gained a little bit of equity month over month on their property. They're up about $7,300 in the city of Surrey combined. Now, year over year, they're down about 53,500. So that's okay. 53,500. That's where they are for the year. So this market, I would still put it into an advantage of a buyer market. Now we did see an increase month over month. Again, 1 month does not make the market, but I would be paying attention to that if I'm sitting on my hands waiting for something to change in the market, because people who bought in November versus people who bought in December actually have gained some equity in their property. So the balanced market is here, guys. This is always going to be the market to watch. Townhomes are that missing middle that you hear so much about the government talk about. It's the properties that are reasonably affordable for young families. It's the space that the young families need, and they're usually in the areas and offer the amenities that they need as well. So this is going to be the mover market. It's going to be for quite some time, the way that I see it, and prices have stopped descending. They've actually increased. So something you definitely want to be paying attention to if you are somebody who's looking to buy a townhome. Now let's talk about detached. North Surrey detached homes have certainly been one of the most struggling products in all of the Fraser Valley. In fact, they have just been hit so hard. It's been absolutely incredible what's happened with them. So you can see how just absolutely low they were. The sales to active ratio was down almost at about 7% at one point. That's an incredibly difficult market, incredibly competitive market where people were shedding value by a ton. But it has been improving month over month over month, and it's trending back towards a balanced market. Now, it's still not there. We're at about a 12% sales to active ratio. So that's roughly about 1 out of 6 properties coming to the market actually transacting each month. Maybe it's 1 out of 7. Doing math live on video is not a smart thing to do, but if you want to know, you can calculate that at home by yourself. Now, what has happened with pricing in that market? Well, let's take a look at detached homes over here. And again, let's recall that this graph right here is not showing the month of November to December, but we did see a little bit of an uptick. I don't know how well you can see that, but we did see a little bit of an uptick from October into November. And sure enough, when we look at what's actually happened with the pricing here, we gave a little bit of that back. So detached homes in the neighborhood are down roughly about $18,000 month over month, and year over year, they're down about $115,000, which is just wild. What a swing that nobody really probably saw coming until February of 2025 happened, and a lot of the world changed at that time. So this market clearly in an advantage for the buyers. There is tons and tons and tons of inventory to choose from. Buyers, like, go shoot your shot. You do not have to buy anything. Now, that said, there's micro markets out there. Some detached home markets are actually performing quite well, and they're not shedding value. But as a whole in the city of Surrey, that is what the case is. So You want to make sure you get local advice. You have somebody who's an expert in the area. They know exactly what's going on if you're trying to price out a home, whether you're buying it or selling it. For home sellers out there, using hope as a strategy to sell your home and just burying your head in the sand, maybe listing it at a price that the market's not accepting, and then just wishing it's going to get better. It ain't going to be getting better anytime soon. It has been trending as an improvement, but we're still a ways away before you're going to start seeing price increases in that area, especially significant ones, in my opinion. So do not use hope as a strategy. It is certainly not one. Buyers, go shoot your shot, get out there and go make your offers. Now, I want to leave you in this video with something as well about the market drivers. We talk about this every time we do this each month. But there's some new updates here that I thought would be valid for a lot of people that are out there considering about getting in the real estate market, whether they're selling or buying. So one of the big market drivers is always mortgage rates. And we've come from an environment where in 2022, the rate shot up and then they've been kind of trickling down ever since. And CIBC Economics Department just predicted the Bank of Canada policy rate, their overnight lending rate, will not change from 2.25% until the end of 2026. And there's lots of other economists saying that based on all the factors that they're taking into consideration when that happens. But a couple things I think you should know about that. Well, number one, if you're a watcher of this channel, you know that that only really affects the variable rate mortgage. So if you don't know how that works versus the fixed rate, we just did a really great video on that on the YouTube channel. So definitely go check that out if you want to understand how that works. But needless to say, for people that are waiting for mortgage rates to come down even further, well, we are actually kind of at the bottom, if not maybe even a little bit lower of where a neutral mortgage rate would be. So the government's not trying to do stimulus. They're not trying to slow anything down either. They're just kind of want to hold things steady right now. So unless something changes, we'll have to see where that goes. But that's what the economists are saying anyways. Economic shifts. For a long time on here, I had Canada signing a trade deal with the US. I don't even feel like it's worth bringing it up anymore because it's clearly not happening anytime soon. And I hope to be proved wrong on that. But I think we've all kind of given up refreshing the news each morning to see if there's any progress on that. That said, though, there is something in the news that's a pretty big deal, and we could hear something any day now. In fact, I'm filming this on a Saturday, and could have been released yesterday on Friday. But we're waiting for the Supreme Court of the United States to make a decision on. I don't know if the legality is the right way of saying it, but really if the enforceability maybe of the U.S. tariffs on other countries and bringing goods into the country is actually able to stay. And there's tons of things that could happen out of that. It could be ruled that that has to stop. It could be ruled that not only does it have to stop, but that money has to be refunded to the people that had to pay those tariffs to get the product into the country, or they could stay. We don't know. And then, who knows what the administration that down there does. But that's a very interesting news article, case study, not case study, but something you want to pay attention to that's in the news right now that is going to impact things. So if it stays, they're proved to allowed to continue going, then it might just be status quo. We might be in kind of similar conditions to where we are now. But what happens if they get removed? Something interesting to think about. So you're going to want to make sure you're paying attention to that. We know the demand is there. There's lots of people sitting on the sidelines right now. All the people we were hearing about that need housing and all the houses that we need didn't go away just because the market started stalling and prices started going down. So there's lots of people out there that are still looking to buy real estate. Seasonal trends is another one that's worth mentioning. We are going into the spring market. Typically, the most transactions occur in the spring market. If you are a seller waiting to sell in spring, you're going to want to watch the video on the channel about the implications of doing that. And if you're a buyer waiting to buy in spring, you're going to want to watch a video about the implications of doing that. I know the data is going to shock you and you might not like what you see. So anyways, make sure you watch that video, but we are going into one of our busier markets typically of the year. And the last one is local policy changes. Our government has been fairly quiet over the last year, and I think that's probably because the shedding values of real estate, which really is not good necessarily for the economy, and it's certainly not good for the coffers of the provincial government because of their reliance on the property transfer tax. And they are going to take a massive hit in income this year because of the lack of sales we were talking about earlier in the video. So I don't expect a lot of local policy changes to be coming out from that either. So anyways, that is your update for the month of January 2026. If you're not following us on Instagram, I'm going to let you know that we do post a ton of snippet content, mostly for South Surrey and White Rock, about what's going on in the area and a lot of stuff that does not make it to this YouTube channel, whether it's local news, new updates for the community, what's happening in the community, specific stats, and what's going on with real estate and everything that you need to know about real estate and whatnot. It's pretty interesting and people are really enjoying it. So make sure you go check us out on there. You can find how to access that in the description below this video. And other than that, if you have any questions, you need any help with any real estate endeavors, whether it's buying or selling, you can connect with me and my team in the description of this video below. Set up a time and we'll get you set up to make sure you're set up for success in whatever you're looking to do in your real estate plans. So thanks for watching, and make sure you subscribe, because we'll see you next month and you're going to get some really cool videos in between. All right, we'll see you then. Cheers.